5 and 26, I brought in your computer, and I put, whenever you you had them, yeah, like whenever you use one of these things,
Right.
and you're actually hard connecting a left and right together, what happens when you get two identical signals or close to identical signals that hit each other, they phase cancel each other, and you get this really nasty, you don't get a good recording. It doesn't sound right, but you don't know what's wrong.
Okay.
And the better the recording, the worse it is. If you get a really good MP3 or MP4, it sounds worse than if you had a junk CD or tape. So you don't want to hard combine these. So that's why I use two channels. I use 25 and 26. So what happens is left goes in here, right goes in here. It's combined in here, and electronically it's sent out in a way that won't phase cancel. So your CD or your output from your computer will sound better. The last button right down here is a PFL button. What it does is when you press it, it sends the output to your headphones.
Which one does?
Ooh. Yeah, the PFL button actually sends the output of the channel to your headphones. And then if you go to your headphone channel, you can actually listen on the headphones to the individual channel. And the reason you would use that is you have three people up there singing and somebody normally in a church you know who the person that doesn't sound good is, but say you didn't, you can hit that button and say, oh yeah, they are okay. That one's okay. Oh yeah, that one's the one. And you can turn them down and kind of tweak it. That's what it's called, PFL or post fade listening. It means you can listen to a particular channel. You can also, remember when I told you when you're setting up your monitors, you can actually listen to every monitor to see how the mix sounds on that monitor. So you can actually, on your headphones, push this button and send these outputs to your headphones. So you can actually hear what you're sending to the choir. If the choir says, I can't hear the piano, before you just give them more piano, put your headphones on and hit it and say, I got enough piano. Because you know what happens is if you turn the piano up too loud in that monitor, it's going to bounce off that back wall and come out of phase with the mains, and it's going to sound lousy in the room. So you never want to turn up monitors any louder than they have to be. Whenever you're setting up this board, always set up your house first. Sit out here. I don't care if the whole choir's up there singing and everything. You want to make it sound good out here first with the monitors turned down. Then you would bring up. You wouldn't necessarily turn all these, but you would turn these down, make the house, like you're doing a cantata or doing something special. You would turn these down, get the house to sound good, and then start adding this back in. Because what will happen is if these get too loud, you'll hear the whole house start falling apart because you'll start hearing sound bouncing all over the place. And it's because these monitors are too loud up there, and they're actually coming out as loud or close to as loud as the mains. And it just makes everything muddy. So you always want to keep these monitors if they don't have to have that particular sound in them, don't give it to them. I mean, obviously your piano makes its own sound, or the clavinova makes its own sound. You let it make its own sound?
No.
You don't? Okay, so what does it make it?
Well, they turn it off. We did it one time, but they don't now, I guess.
Okay, if that makes its own sound, then you wouldn't want to put her through the monitor. Because if you did, then it's going to be too loud. But if you're not doing it that way, then you might want to. One of the things I notice about your clavinova is you're using one of these. And these things are okay for isolation, but they're not really good for the way you're using them. On the clavinova, you should have a direct box. And that will allow it to go to an XLR in a way that will give you better fidelity. The transformer inside this thing is about the size of an eraser. And the transformer inside a direct box is about almost the size of this. Bigger the transformer, the better the sound out of the transformer. So this thing is basically just to get rid of noise. This thing is to make it the bigger one with the direct box. It's like this big. It actually changes it from one of these connectors to an XLR in a way that will make your fidelity stay constant.
Without losing quality.
So you really need to get a direct box on that. If you need one, let me know. I carry them in stock. I always have them on my shelf, so just let me know.
I I would put that as a footnote to do later, or at the end, or whatever.
These controls right here, you'll never use. These are returns. What this is, if you had an external effects system or something like that, it allows you to send a signal out and bring it back. You're not going to use anything through here. You're not going to use your group here, so you don't have to worry about that. And this right here, if you start pushing buttons here, you can really goof things up because this is, as I said, is a little digital processor. I really wish that they would have given you a switch back here that would let me disable it, because a lot of my service calls are somebody says, oh, what's this? They hit a few buttons and all of a sudden you're not getting an output out of your board. And it's because you just threw, like right here, I shouldn't show you. Right here, this is showing that both channels are being combined and sent out as a left and right. All I have to do is push one button and I can stop that from happening. And the problem is if I stop that from happening, the left channel might quit working.
Right.
So you don't want to mess with this. And you want to make sure you have zeros right there. That means that you don't have any effects going on in the board.
Okay. Which is the input when we run the camera? There's actually a shotgun mic on it, which what they call it, which is supposed to pick up room noise or people singing.
What I did is because
that's
I didn't know what it was, I left it in 31.
Okay.
Just realize that when pastor starts preaching, you really want to turn that down.
Mute that. Right.
Because you really don't want, what you're getting is what the speaker is reproducing in a microphone.
Yep.
What I would do, if I were trying to get congregational, is I would take one of the microphones I told you worked really good for instruments. I would just set it on the floor, point it this direction, maybe up a little bit,
Sure.
not put it in the house at all, and use that for my record instead of the shotgun mic. Because the shotgun mic, what it's picking up, it'll pick up all these coughs and everything here. And also it's picking up the singing off the back of the people's heads. I mean, when I sing, I'm throwing high frequencies that way. I'm not throwing any high frequencies this way. So the congregation is showing their high frequencies forward, and you're recording them from the back. So the congregations are going to kind of sound like this with the singing. If you use a microphone up there instead of that, it's a really hot mic. Just make sure that you don't turn this up, because you don't want that mic in the house. You only want it on record. But in record, you can crank that puppy. I mean, you can make that thing, because
Make
there's
it
no
sound full.
Yeah, there's no speakers hooked up to it.
Sure.
You're just going to hear. So I mean, you could take number 4 and actually bring it all the way over here and bring this all the way over here, and I mean, just hammer that thing if you needed to. And then you could actually go up here and increase your gain. And remember, that's a very, very hot microphone, so it's going to pick this room up like mad. And say you want to get real creative and play, put one on either side and use both of them, but don't let either one of them come into the house. So both.
Well, you want them facing forward, though.
Yeah, this way.
Right.
So and then just see where I've got that one sitting right there. Yeah. Point it this way, raise it up, so just so nobody can see it. Point it up slightly into the room. Congregation, singing is going to sound 10 times better than with that mic on that, because that mic on that, the little shotgun mic,
cheap
it's cheap.
Junk,
It's nothing. Those microphones are really sweet mics. You might as well use them.
Is there one that we?
There's 2 of them up there right now that you're not using unless you have an ensemble or somebody singing that's wrapped around that mic.
Okay.
And remember, if you have somebody comes in playing an acoustic guitar, great microphone. Put it about this far in front of the strings, just to the sun, pointed like at an angle to the hole.
Yep.
And it sounds awesome. Violin, you would come up over the back. Clarinet, piccolo, anything.
Down in front, those type of instruments, or behind?
It depends on where the sound is coming out. Some like a brass instrument, you normally don't need to do anything. They're already too loud. But a stringed instrument needs help. Piccolo, woodwinds
We have a
need
couple
help.
clarinet players. That's why he's asking.
Clarinets. Clarinets aren't as loud as some. I mean, if the clarinets were trying to keep up with a trumpet, then you might need to help well, you're probably going to tell the trumpets to back down, because if you try to make the trumpets keep up with the clarinet and clarinet. One's loud, one's not. I get them confused. But anyhow, you want to back one down rather than make the other one louder, because what's going to happen is you can make them really loud. The problem is the people in the audience are going to say, it's too loud, I don't like it. Especially older people that are hearing, remember, your older people are hearing roar. So the louder you make this system, the more they're going to hear a roar. Actually, you should never run the mains any louder than you have to. You should run the whole system like you're hearing my voice about as far away as I am from you. That's how it should sound. The biggest problem I have at my church, and it just drives me nuts, I know who's in the sound booth by what they do, is they see how loud they can make pastor. Well, it's obnoxious, and it makes people tired. It actually makes you fatigued when it's too loud. And you can start hearing pastor bounce off. The way you can tell it is we've got a fan-shaped church, and it starts bouncing off the corners. And I just want to go up and discipline the guy. But I know who it is every time, and he will not listen. He thinks pastors should be loud. Well, he can be loud. The intelligibility goes down. The people get tired faster, and the old people aren't going to like it. So you really want to make it loud. So that's my church. You can label these things if you like. The do not touch, normally these are going to be left straight up and down. Now that you know how these work, you'll know if you need to touch it. And normally it's only if a microphone doesn't seem to have that mid-range, or sometimes somebody's voice doesn't have that mid-range. I mean, you might have an older person, when a person gets to be about my age, they start losing a quality to their voice. You can actually play around with this parametric. Only do it during practice, don't do it during the service, but you can actually play around with this parametric and make a voice that doesn't sound that good actually sound better. But when you get done, go straight up and down, put them right straight up and down. Don't leave that mess for somebody else, because somebody that has a really good voice picks that thing up and all of a sudden it sounds like that, you know? It's because of what you did. So whatever you change on the board on a given Sunday, make sure you leave it for the next person the way you found it. So you want some consistency.
And this is the headphone level?
That's the headphone level.
And what's that?
PFL. This actually allows you to listen to the media or to listen to the sources from the board. One says media and one says left and right.
Where's the recording, like the input to the computer? Because we also record it on here. Like we video record it up there, and then we also have audio record.
Right now, it looks like they're running, I think this is what they're running it out of right here. What they did is they run a record out signal down here, which is it's another left and right out. And they're running it into here, and then these are little volume controls right here. One of them says that it's, I think one says TV. The other one, it looks like cry room or something like that, they used to say. And are there speakers somewhere else out? Yeah, okay, that's probably what these are for. And they're actually being run on a record output. At some point, you might want to consider, I've changed a lot of stuff, but you might want to consider this is a really inexpensive way and not a very good way. They're actually using this because it's passive backwards. This is a little mic mixer that they've used backwards. But you could come up with what they call a distribution amp, and what you could do is send your record out, which is number 4, and give that record out to this thing, and then give that you'd have a level control on it to give to your camera. You'd have a level control to send to the external speakers, and you'd have a level control to send to your computer, and you'd have a level control, wherever you want to send it to. So that might be something you want to look at in the future.
Well, I mean, ideally, right now, we want the two main outs that we're concerned with as far as the record out. We want one to go to the computer and one to the camera.
Right, what I did is number 4 goes to the camera right here.
Okay.
That's number 4 right here. The other one, I did not change it. So I assume it's going to this box off this record and going to there.
Which is which number?
It's actually just record out.
Okay.
It's this one right here.
I see.
It's just a master, it's like this, only it's at another location where you could actually have a level control on it. It's not really the best way. You really need a little distribution amp, like a 5 or 6 channel distribution amp. That way you could get yourself a really good mix off aux 4 and then just send it to wherever you need it to send and have an individual volume control on each one. You could actually use these too. You could use 4, 5, and 6 for that. The problem is, it's really hard to get the mix right on 3 different channels. You have to get this one right, and then you try to match all the knobs to be the same. Then you have to plug it in and hit the PFL and listen, yeah, that's okay. Then you have to go to the next one. It's easier just to have one that you're doing the recording on, listening on the headphones. You got that right, everybody's happy. That means for your, another thing is if you're recording onto the computer, like you said you were, make sure that you have the computer muted, because if you don't, you'll create an internal feedback loop, which might have been what took out channel 12 or channel 32. Because an internal feedback loop you don't always hear, and it actually can just blow the whole channel right out. The lights can go here if you ever, you looks like you've already taken care of that. They've got little LED lights that you can put here, but you don't really need that. This is brighter than they are. Any questions?
I think so.
So it sounds like there's at least 2 items that would be good for us to purchase. The one item for a Clavinova, and then the one, the volume
The direct
mixer.
box is only like $30. And it depends on which distribution amp you get.
Well, I don't think this is the right solution, so,
You don't?
based on what you said, no. Of course
Oh,
not,
these
so-
buttons right here, if ever this quits working, this is your CD input.
Okay.
These buttons right here, if somebody pushes these, it's really, one of these is a mic input, one is the line level input, one of them is the input that comes from back here, which is the USB input, and then there's a stereo on the left-right. So if ever this quits working, just push these buttons together, and you'll probably find somebody pushed one of the buttons and goofed it up. That's another service call I get quite often is somebody has pushed one of these buttons, especially this one. I wish they'd have put this one back here because they don't really use it that much, but if you push it, all of a sudden, instead of listening to these two, it's listening for this thing you don't even have plugged in right back here.
Right,
A thumb drive. So that, just so you know about that, remember about these right here, you want to look at where you plug your microphones and how you're using them. If it's a vocal, you want this button down. If it's an instrument, you want the button up. On the choir microphones, of course, the button will always be down. Oh, I wanted to show you in the choir. The way you do choir is you make sure this is correct. You release the 2 microphones, and then you turn this all the way up. I've already done it.
Hear the feedback. Just barely stop feeding back.
Now you know if you have to, you can go that loud. Normally I leave it at 0. But now say you only have 8 people in your choir that Sunday.
Right.
Realize that right now I've only got these 2 mics on. So if somebody forgot and let this microphone on and maybe somebody forgot another microphone, you might not be able to get that high. But I like to show people that on the choir mics because the choir mics are the ones that feed back the most. And right now, when you listen to this, I wanted to show you that too. See, that's the mid-range. I want you to be able to know what that is. I'm going to turn it back. Now listen to the high. See, now I'm going up, way up in frequencies. And that this is the one that you can somehow, this is one when you get a whole bunch of people up there, this is the one you'll hear. Yeah, see, now that one is very easy to take care of because you can easily turn the low frequencies down on these choir microphones and not really affect them much at all because these are really low frequencies.
Like 60 hertz or
Yeah, well, it's not that low. It actually doesn't say what they are. It probably in the book it says, but it doesn't say here. But you can get away with turning those down. You really don't want to turn these down much. If you get to the point after, I mean, in this position, if you get to the point it still feeds back, you've got to make a change in something. Make sure the choir microphones are pointed. But actually, right now, those choir mics are really hot. If you were up there, one person talking, it would pick you up. So if there's 8 people singing, you're gonna hear it.
Every once in a while, when you speak, I can still hear the feedback on the mic.
Yes.
Right, and that's because I'm right at the edge. I'm right, but if right here at 0, you'll never hear it. And what you have to do is if you went up that high, you'd have to really be listening for the feedback, and you'd have to have your fingers right here. And realize that, oh, another thing I wanted to tell you, especially on the choir mics, absolutely never in any of the monitors. You never want to put the choir microphones in the monitors. The pastor does not need to hear himself preach. He can hear himself preach, so you don't need to put it in the monitors next to him. And you really don't, because the aux 3 where the clavinova and the piano, they're not there, so don't turn those on. So on the pastor's mic, on wherever the pastor's mic is, he doesn't really need to be turned up on anybody except maybe choir when the choir's up. And that's...
They're not up there when he's preaching, so.
Right.
But there might be announcements or something while the choir's up. Then you could turn it up just during that period. Make sure you turn it back down when you do it so somebody else doesn't come in, start having weird problems because somebody left it the wrong way. Another pet peeve of mine at our church is somebody does something, you got one guy that really knows a lot about a digital board, he plays with it, and then the next Sunday, the next guy doesn't know that much, and he doesn't know how to fix what the guy the Sunday before screwed up, so we have to suffer through the whole service because it's something somebody else did and didn't change it back. So
Key is,
the only thing you're going to need to mess with pretty much are these, and then also set your vocal, you're going to need to set your vocal microphones for whoever might sing. You should always practice with the people before they sing. Like if you have a service, the people should be here a half hour before service or something so you can set levels on them. There's no way that a trio can get up and you can live set levels because it's going to be halfway through the song before you get it sounding good. So you need 15, 20 minutes, and then when you're back here in the service, you can't say, hey, you need to get that mic up by your mouth, but you can do it during practice. So you need to have them in, and that should be a rule if it isn't a rule now. If you're going to sing, you need to be here a half hour before service. So the piano can play with you. You can make sure you can hear the piano well out of the monitor and you got enough level. You can hear yourself. Do you really want to hear each other, or do you want to just listen to each other sing? Do you want to hear each other on the monitor? All these things you want to do before service. That way the people out here will enjoy it. The people that are singing will enjoy it, and you'll look like a hero, which is what sound guys always want to look at like.
yeah, ideally, they should never turn and look back here because there's a problem.
Yes, and I can tell. I say, oh boy, so and so's in the booth today, and I'll turn around and sure enough, I can tell who's in the booth by how the sound is run. We got 2 guys that are really good, and we got 2 guys that are. They have really good hearts.
Actually, have to run.
I think we're done.
All right.
And you've got this recording.
I really got to go too.
Yep.
Yes.
If you
Thank you very
forget
much.
anything, look at the recording.
Thanks,
If you
Pastor.
can't get it, my number is 810-569-4931.
Thank you very much. It was
Yep.
very, very helpful.
Yep.
I'm going to take, before I shut this off, take a close-up.
These right here are not set right now.
Okay.
So they need to be set according to what the person needs on that
Right.
Sunday.
All right. Outstanding. Thank you very much.